Right, so let's get started because we've not got much time left in the room. I have no idea how long this presentation is going to take. I threw it together on Thursday and I've only run through it once. So it's my first presentation on Con, even though I've been with Con for 2 years now. And I'm sure a lot of you appreciate why I haven't been able to talk about work I've done before, NDAs and all the such issues. But now I have a project of my own, completely non-work related, so the only person that's stopping me is me. And if I am stopping myself in this talk, it's because I'm filming it. It's going to go out on the interwebs, so if you want any more details on anything, buy me a beer later and I'll probably tell you about it. So making games. It's not as security related as some talks on Con. I've probably delved into some of the security challenges, but it is an interesting, very interesting project, so I figured I'd just come and tell you guys about it. First of all though, for those who have sharp eyes, you may notice I only have one eyebrow. This comes off the back of November, so that was the official end of my November, which I was quite proud of. But even though I have a very impressive November, we didn't earn that much money. We're talking about 110 quid, thereabouts. So in a chat over beer, as is normally the case, it was suggested that it might be funny if I shaved off one eyebrow and left a little bit of moustache, so it looked like my eyebrow was slipped down my face. Initially I wasn't a big fan of the idea, and then they offered £100 for me to do it. I said, okay, if you give me £100, I'll do it. Little did I know that the person was going to crowdsource £100. So it hit Facebook, hit Twitter. Long story short, the eyebrow slipped. So that's essentially why I have no eyebrow. It's all for a good cause. They can still take money, so anyone who wants to donate some money, that's my MoSpace site, so log on, give me money, well not me money, give cancer research money. But yeah, so that's basically why I have one eyebrow, to get that out of the way first. So who am I? Well, my name's Dave Belcher. You guys know me as Belcher, whatever. Like most people, I'm a hacker, gamer, general all-round geek. I'm also a mixed martial artist. I was due to be fighting tomorrow, but due to a drunken radio incident, I've had to pull out that competition. I'm also a bit of an amateur chef. I make awesome meatballs. But anyway, by day, I'm a security researcher. I work for RIM, and I've been officially doing hacking stuff for 7 years, unofficially a few years before that, as is usually the case. But by night, I'm the technical director of Forsaken Studios, a game studio, and I have 9 months experience, which isn't a lot. It's all pretty new, all new challenges. Now the studio, it's an independent games development studio, and we've got 55 people on the scene right now, which grew from a group of, I don't know, maybe a dozen friends from various different gaming communities. And the entire team, which is the impressive part, is 55 people all working completely voluntary. Nobody's getting paid, and in a lot of cases people actually put in their own money into the project. There are costs involved running the websites, buying licensing costs and things like that, and that's all been completely funded by community donations, either through one-off donations, through guys on the team putting money in, or through like a support plan we've got set up through our website. So that's all pretty cool. So the talk, I'm going to go over a quick overview of the game, the sort of things that it involves, and then I'll go to the challenges that are involved with making a computer game, and hopefully it'll be a bit interesting for you. So the game is called Embers of Caerus. A lot of deliberation over about 6 months over what we should call it, and that's what it came down to. And it's probably one of the most difficult software engineering tasks you could come across to make a computer game for lots of reasons. So the question has to be why? Why are we bothering to try and make a computer game, especially one like this, which is actually a massively multiplayer online role-playing game, which is somewhat more difficult than, say, a browser game or a mobile game. So the first reason is that basically we're the part of that crowd that sits there and complains about how games have done it wrong and how they should have done it right, and how they should have approached the various challenges differently. And we kind of got to the position where it's like, if you want something doing right, you've got to do it yourselves. And we're lucky to have within our circle people with the abilities to start founding the team. But the other reason, as is the case for anything that us in this room look at, is the challenge. It's a new challenge, it's something I haven't done before, something a lot of the guys on the team haven't done before but have wanted to. And it's just an awesome challenge, and it is fantastic fun. I mean, who wouldn't want to make computer games if you could for a living? If you had the people behind you and the team to do it, who wouldn't, really? It's a dream. It was for me when I was 13 years old trying to write a basic program to do something and wondering what a syntax error was. It's always been a bit of a dream, so that's primarily the reasons why. So the game itself, there's a kind of a short list. It's the first feature list we've actually released. We spoke roughly about the vision and things, but it's the first time we've actually released a list of features. Like I said, it's a medieval, low fantasy, so it has magic, but it doesn't have elves. MMORPG. It's first person view, so in the likes of Oblivion or Skyrim or that sort of game, or Mortal Online, which is a current MMORPG. Rich backstory, massive seamless persistent world, and all those other features that you can look at in the slides later. Lots of fun stuff in there. I am going to go quickly over some of the cool stuff that we have in there. Some of the things that I think are probably the cooler features of the game that will kind of try and sway people to playing our game as opposed to playing someone else's. First of all is purely the scale. It is freaking huge. To give a bit of a comparison, you're looking at large games like Just Cause 3. That's probably one of the bigger games out there right now as far as game and explorable world. Their game, the last, I believe, is 256 square kilometers, thereabouts, which is pretty big. Our first continent of 4 is 3,800 square kilometers. So that kind of gives you an idea of the scale. And there's lots of reasons for that scale, because the sort of game it is, it really needs to be that big. You're talking about having people setting up towns and places to live, and having supply lines, and having kind of an economy where local demand affects prices. If the world's too small, that's really not going to work. So we have got, or aim to have, the biggest game world ever made in a computer game to date. So yeah, so really pretty big, pretty huge. It also has an awesome story. I mean, the project, the guy who kind of proposed and started the project, our creative director, he based the whole backstory of the game on essentially a novel that he had mostly written. I think it was like 300 and something pages, a 400-page novel, plus a few thousand back pages of back notes. So there's a massive, rich story in there. I mean, the guy's even written an entire language, a completely new language, which is like an ancient language that during the game the players will be able to find bits of and try and decipher for various reasons. But I mean, it has an awesome story. This is just in the concept art that one of the guys has put up. I think this is part of a conflict between the mages and the religious types, because magic in the game is completely shunned, as opposed to other games where it's like a big thing. So you won't see much magic. But yeah, so it has an awesome story. Also, so one of the problems that we've had, or one of the issues we've had with games in the past, is that you always know where to go to kill a wolf because the wolves live there, or you know where to go to find the goblins because they live over there, or whatever animals you're trying to kill, they're always in the same place. It all gets very samey. I don't know if any of you remember a game from a long time ago called Sim Life. Essentially it was a ecology simulation system where you'd create creatures and foliage, and you'd put them all in this little world and hit play, and then it would just kind of live its life, and you'd see how things progress. And this concept was taken up by a guy called Richard Garriotts back when he made Ultima Online. He wanted to try and have it so that animals would live in the world as well, and they'd start hunting each other. So predators would kill their prey, and that would all kind of live. But at the time, they just didn't have the technical facilities to be able to do that at all. It just was not possible. Now, thanks to modern technology, some clever architecture, we definitely think we will have it nailed. So we have systems in place where the spawns of animals are not just static, there'll be a herd that moves around the world. We'll have predatory animals that will be killing their prey. And off the back of that as well, you have systems where if a player goes out and kills all the gazelles in the area, not only will they not be able to farm them anymore for their hides, for their bones, or whatever they use for crafting, because they're gone, but also all the predatory animals that ate them in the area, maybe they get hungry, maybe they start attacking towns, start attacking players, get a bit more feisty, as it were. So it adds to a whole element within the game where players are actually thinking about the ecology of the world, rather than just going out and killing things randomly. So another feature, dynamic weather and seasons. There's an element of that in some games, I guess, but nobody's actually followed through and actually done it properly. We've got an engine test up on YouTube which demonstrates some of the graphical features we've got, such as when it snows, it actually snows and snow settles on buildings and settles on trees and settles on fences. And so we have the facility now where we can have a summer where it's nice and bright and sunny, and we have a winter where everything's covered in snow. And we have all these kind of features that also tie into game systems. So when it's cold, you really want to wrap up. When it's hot, you don't run around in a big suit of armour, because you're going to get too hot, you're going to basically have detrimental effects. So we have that whole system in there with the dynamic seasons planned, so that it actually matters what time of year it is. And the crafting system as well, like trying to grow corn in the winter is probably a bad idea. So we have all that planned. Ships, I love this system, mostly because it's mostly my idea, but I don't know if any of you remember that game, Sid Meier's Pirates. It went through a couple of renditions, I've seen some nods, that's all good. So basically with Sid Meier's Pirates, it was an isometric view where you had the best ship combat in any game, where essentially you'd use the wind and the wind direction to gain a tactical advantage over your opponent, because obviously steering with the wind, you're going to get speed, and so on. We have a full system planned around that, such that when you're in an area, not as in normal games or in other games where you're just basically driving the speed it is, whatever speed it goes, and driving it around, you're actually using the wind. So you're trying to gain advantage through player skill as opposed to arbitrary in-game mechanics. So that's a really exciting system, and we've got lots of cool stuff planned for that. And that's actually an Execute exclusive. We haven't told the community about that system yet, so I reckon they'll be interested to hear about that. But yeah, so that's one of the systems as well. But yeah, so that's the game. So I'm going to go over and try and bring it back into the kind of technical and a bit of security field, seeing as the crowd we're speaking to. Some of the challenges that are involved. First of all, there's obviously the technical challenges. You've got complex game systems. Really complex game systems. How to implement that AI, so you have the kind of sim life scenario. How to do the shipping. Also, we've got all the crafting systems, because being a role-playing game, people like to make stuff. So all the crafting systems, the combat systems. There's so many, so complicated systems designed to write, to test, and make sure they're all working perfectly, and also make sure they're working together, because all the systems are intrinsically linked to some level. We've got the server architecture. We're looking at massive clustering. Ideally, we're looking at anywhere up to 300,000 players within the game world at any one time, which can be handled by the scale of the world. But we're looking at the server architecture that can handle that, the network architecture that can handle that data. So all of that's one of the big challenges. Graphical programming, that's a challenge for me because it's so much maths, and I'm shocking at maths. I don't know if any of you have looked into graphics programming, into shaders, into all that side of things. It's such an interesting field, so complicated. I've learned a fair bit already working on the project, but just massive challenges in making it look cool without killing the client, without making the client chug along trying to process all the graphics. Data storage, again, being a role-playing game, every character has maybe 1,000 nuggets of information stored in relation to their character. Extrapolate that over hundreds of thousands of players, if not millions, if the game gets that successful, you've got massive data storage with data access issue. And then obviously the key one for an MMORPG is network bandwidth. How do you handle that many players sending that much data in a real-time system in a way that they're not kind of lagging around? We're looking at first-person view combat. That needs to be responsive, it needs to be quick. And so basically, technically, it's a very, very challenging project. But then, of course, there's security, and there's even more that I put up there as far as security challenges. I mean, most of those for this crowd are pretty standard. You've got payment systems, you've got network attacks, you've got availability issues. I mean, these are the problems we hit every day in our normal day jobs. But there's also unique security challenges for the gaming field, but also for the MMORPG side of things. The first one being the client attacks. So this is just a cherry-picked list of things we're looking at. So aimbots. If you've got any first-person view game, if they're able to have projectile-based combat, there's going to be people writing aimbots. Speed hacks, invisibility, radar, so being able to see people who you wouldn't ordinarily be able to see, have those visible within your game client. And this is down to a client security issue. Essentially, you're doing rootkit detection on the client. Things like Punkbuster try and do this. And essentially having awesome client-side security, which we know in the security field is a very difficult task, because as soon as you stick on the client, they're going to basically, they have access to the keys. So how can we do that and protect that client well? And then outside of that, outside of the definitive security issue, you've got game logic issues. So, I mean, these are AI abuse, griefing, which is a big problem in the security field. How do we stop people detrimenting other people's gameplay? Scammers, lag abuse, so people stopping their packets and queuing up and sending them in one blow, which was an issue at one point for games like Mortal Online, and it's recently been an issue for games like Darkfall, where people would flick a lag switch, go up, hit someone 100 times, flick the switch back on, and that player would suddenly get hit 100 times within the space of like a millisecond, because that's the way the lag's kind of queued up and processed, so how to protect against that. And the big one is duping. So duping is a process whereby someone can exploit an issue, be it with server node lines or other problems within the game, to allow them to duplicate an item and create millions of them. I mean, that doesn't sound like a big security issue, but when you bear in mind that a game economy can make or break a game of this sort, when you have someone who's able to dupe things and become essentially a billionaire within a couple of hours, that completely destroys the game economy, and as a knock-on, completely destroys the game itself. We've seen this come up a lot of times in various online games over the last few years. And so stopping that is probably one of the highest priorities, I would say, because the effect of one single duping incident could knock on for 6-12 months of the life of the game. So we've got some kind of high-level logic issues that make you think a little bit differently, and it throws in things like forensics and network monitoring and being able to detect this stuff happening, and if necessary, go back and respond to that in a meaningful way. Yeah, so I plowed through that in 20 minutes, which is good. So essentially, yes, security is one of the biggest challenges that I'll be facing with the team, and thankfully, because we care about security, we're aiming not only to be one of the most innovative games of this decade, also one of the most secure, because we're hitting it from the start. We're trying to put in an SDL, we're trying to hit security right in the nuts at the start and come out with a decent, secure and fun game. So yeah, so I'm sorry I've rapped through that really quick, because we are going to get kicked out of the room soon. So as an ending point, I preemptively answered a couple of questions that might be asked. The first one, I'm sure you're going to ask, is how can you help? We do need coders. It's hard to find people that are good coders that can think on their feet and write good stuff. And that's not just the graphic stuff that I'm pretty poor with, but I mean just all the systems. We just need people who want to do network code, core code, server code, client protection stuff. So if anyone wants to throw around a bit of code on a bit of a side project, give me a shout. I mean, technology and architecture. Any of you hardware junkies who know how to put together an awesome, highly performant server system, or wants to look into server clustering technologies, or any of that sort of stuff, I'd definitely love to sit down over a pint and talk about it. Security ideas. So how do we solve all those challenges? The security challenges and the technological challenges. So how can we kind of fix those issues. So any ideas, any banter wants to be had over that, that's all cool. And then at some point down the line, testing. I will throw out a TimCon list at some point to basically come and hack my stuff. Hit the game, attack the client, break the server. I mean, you guys in this room, the rest of the guys in Uncon, they're some of the best guys in the industry. So if we get you guys hitting it, breaking it, and helping fix it, we're definitely going to be on a good footing. The second question, which I guess will be asked, is when do we play? We're aiming to release in 2015-2016 time frame, based on funding and getting everything done. There will be the usual pre-alpha, alpha, beta, closed beta, open beta type process. We're also looking at potentially having earlier deliverables, depending on some specific getting the systems worked on. But the actual release, we're looking at 2015-2016, which is a long time. But I think it's probably reasonable for the sort of things we're trying to do. And obviously, if you're helping out, you're going to get access early. It just makes sense, really. That's pretty much it. We do have some time, they haven't kicked us out yet, so does anybody have any questions about any of that? Awesome. Oh yes, hello.
You talked about sort of how the game logic and everything fits together.
Yeah.
Are you kind of having short logic sequences for, you know, this does that, and the player can build them up and link them together to do stuff? Or is it very, very hard-coded and it's like, you have to put this object in that location to have such and such happen?
So, that's a difficult question to answer at this point. So the interrelations are things to do with balancing. So the ability to create weapons and armour will have a knock-on to the PvE or PvP, so play versus player combat aspects of the game. And likewise, having player gatherings, so going out chopping down trees, killing animals, that's going to have a knock-on effect on the crafting, because how easy is it to get resources? And then that's going to have a knock-on effect on the economy. So if things are too easy or too difficult to come across, things will be too easy or too difficult to make, which means the economy is going to be a bit weird, which means people are not going to actually use them for PvP because they risk losing stuff. So there's that whole knock-on effect. And then you have things like the shipping and the transport mediums. How easy is it to move from one place to the other, which affects, again, the economy. Like how does that affect the pricing of goods? But also it affects the whole crafting side. Like how easy is it to get X resource that I have to ship in from like 100 kilometers over that way. So the knock-on effects in that aspect is more along the logical aspect as opposed to specific technical interdependency between systems. If that makes sense?
Yeah.
Yes. Given you're looking 4 or 5 years forward for client technologies,
yeah,
are you concerned that effectively all the sort of graphics technologies, the tablet, laptop style technologies, even the operating systems in play would be radically different than the ships?
Oh yeah, no, for sure. I mean, the baseline we're looking at is, if it runs on today's computer, anyone will be able to play on it, but we're aiming to hit technology that's 5 years down the line. So we're going straight into DirectX 11 as the baseline DX approach. And I mean, we have a lot of benefit in that the engine we're using, that's constantly updated. So any new graphics technology ultimately gets rolled in. We're using the Vision 8 engine. So we are able to incorporate that into the design, and we're keeping our sprints reasonably short, and we're keeping it quite it's a rad approach. We're designing in such a way that we can add in the new technologies, and we can basically leverage what we'll have in 4 or 5 years' time, both in platform and in pure technology. Yeah.
It's a slightly philosophical question. I appreciate there are some classes of security issues that really do just ruin a game. But why do no games actually tackle the fact that actually this can be a positive thing as well? I mean, the fact of the matter is, in the real world, there are rapid jumps forward because somebody just comes out with something new tomorrow. Something that wasn't envisaged by their anniversary, their fix. Why do none of these games actually accept that concept?
So you're essentially talking about emergent gameplay.
I get a good example, the aimbot. Okay, the aimbot might well really go to a degree. The counterpoint is that in the real world, what do the US Army do, what's the British Army, what's Afghanistan? They're all trying to make those big jumps forwards, and sometimes they manage it.
Yeah.
So why not allow that, incorporate it, encourage it, and support it?
Okay, so the question is, why don't we kind of allow and support people who have the knowledge and ability to essentially hack the game to gain some advantage in a way that people do in the real world, trying to get a technological advantage over your opponent. I think the key issue here is that as a consumer game, we need to essentially make sure everyone's on a reasonably level playing field. Not everyone who plays games are computer hackers that can do such things. And yes, okay, they could go out and buy these hacks, but it would still be an unbalanced field, and it would be kind of funding the people that are essentially unbalancing the game. The way it's approached is you can gain advantage in the game by understanding the game mechanics, by playing the game better, essentially, by within the game mechanics, sourcing your equipment from someone who's damn good at making it. So there are ways to gain advantages in that arms race in the game, but the problem is when you let it go outside the game, so things like aimbots and such become the technology you need to advance, it alienates the rest of the community that don't have access to that technology.
So where do you see the line there? Because if you're talking about the fact that you can understand the mechanics of the game, the economy of the game, yeah, something like just-in-time shipping, the equivalent of that within the game, presumably there is the ability, if you're saying one, to start to develop that, and then to start to sell on to other people, either in terms of game economy or real world economy.
So
are you trying to prevent that concept occurring? Or are you trying to support it, or are you just kind of sitting in the middle and not?
Yeah, so this is where we get into emergent gameplay, where people come up with clever ways to make use of the game, leveraging the game systems in ways that are not expected by the developers. And this is down to metagaming, so social engineering within groups within the game. And that's actually awesome stuff. That's some of the stuff that you can do in this sort of game that you can't do in games like World of Warcraft that are more kind of theme parky oriented. So games that have strong social structures and social hierarchies, having emergent gameplay, it adds something to the game that we could never put in. Where the line's drawn is where people are using third-party technologies, they're hacking the game, they're introducing their own ways of interacting with the game client that gives them a technological advantage over other people playing the game. So if they were basically plugging into the client to gain faster access to certain data and respond quicker, it's a bit of a grey area, but it's basically trying to keep the playing field as level as possible.
That's not surely fundamentally naive. The fact of the matter is every game out there has had that kind of thing happen to it. Why not accept it? Why not grow with it? You've got the capability, I would assume, from in this room, to actually appreciate those skills and draw some difference from it, as opposed to simply fighting like everybody else in the reason.
Yeah, no,
do you want to head over to the bar?
Yeah, so grab me for a beer afterwards and we'll go in there. And yes.
Just when you talk about social hierarchy being important, does that mean that your player identity persists when you're not logged on?
Oh, so your player does not exist in the world, but your identity within the social structures you create in the game will. So if you're, say, a leader of a crafters organisation, you will still be the leader of the crafters organisation when you leave the game. And they may rely on you to pop into the game every now and again and do some function of that role as the leader of that crafters organisation. So there's definite persistence. I mean, that's the whole key tenet is persistence. And
there's no AI to manage that, it's just if you're not there then it could be great.
Yeah, pretty much. There's a degree that we're looking at within the game, so hiring hirelings and hiring NPCs to carry out basic tasks and paying them to do so. So that can anything from guards through to menial task workers, like someone farming your field when you're offline and stuff like that. But you'll have to pay, obviously, in-game cash to purchase that facility, and that will persist while you're offline. So you can kind of step back to a managerial role within the game, and that's one of the things that kind of sets us aside from basic sandboxes, where it's you doing your thing, is to kind of have a bit of simulation aspect in there. And a bit of kind of management sim in there, if that's what you wish. You could just go out and kill stuff, because that's cool, and people like doing that. Or you could go sail a ship around the world and probably get lost. Or you can be a fisherman. You can be whatever you want, is ultimately. And the aim is to put in the systems to allow that, really. Anybody else? Awesome. Well, so that's our website. We've got YouTube. There's a cool engine test video which we knocked out 6 weeks after working with the engine, which is still pretty nice. Things have progressed quite a lot since then, but it's all pretty cool. That's my Forsaken Studios email. You can catch me on the list if necessary. If you want to just grab me for a beer later, do so. But yeah, thank you.